The night Alpha Darius Blackthorn rejected Lyra Vale, the entire kingdom came to watch. Not because she was important, not because anyone believed she deserved to stand beside him, but because rejection ceremonies were rare among the northern packs and cruelty always drew a crowd. The grand hall of Blackthorn Keep glittered beneath hundreds of silver lanterns. Noble wolves from 7 packs filled the long rows of carved wooden seats. Their jewels flashed, their silk gowns whispered, their eyes waited hungrily for humiliation. At the far end of the hall, beneath the great moon window, stood Lyra, alone. She wore a simple white dress that had once belonged to her mother. The sleeves were slightly too long, the hem carefully mended by her own hands, and at her throat hung a small moonstone pendant, the only thing her mother had left behind before disappearing 17 years ago. The women around her wore crowns of pearls and gold. Lyra wore hope, and that was the most dangerous thing in the room. Across from her stood Alpha Darius, tall, cold, beautiful, in the way storms were beautiful. His black hair fell over his brow, his dark coat embroidered with silver thread, his alpha mark glowing faintly at his neck. Every wolf in the hall felt his power. It pressed against the air like thunder. For 3 years, Lyra had served in his castle. She had washed blood from his battle shirts. She had prepared his healing herbs when silver poison burned in his veins. She had sat outside his chamber doors when nightmares tore him from sleep, and in secret, when their mate bond awakened under the winter moon, she had believed the goddess had finally seen her. Darius had not spoken the words then. He had only looked at her. But in that look, Lyra had felt a promise that one day, when the council accepted her, when the pack understood, when the politics ended, he would claim her. She had waited. She had stayed silent. She had loved him quietly, in corners where no one could laugh. Tonight, the waiting was supposed to end. Tonight was the moon ascension ceremony, where every unmated alpha declared his lunar before the kingdom. Lyra stood before the court, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the whispers. Look at her dress. She really thinks he'll choose her? She's an omega. Does she even have a wolf? No one has ever seen her shift. At the front row, Lady Seraphina Marrow smiled behind a crystal goblet. Seraphina was everything Lyra was not. Royal blood, perfect posture, a golden wolf, a family powerful enough to turn council votes with a single dinner invitation. And she wanted Darius. Everyone knew it. But Lyra had believed the mate bond would be stronger than ambition. Then Darius stepped forward. The hall went silent. The High Elder lifted his silver staff and spoke. Alpha Darius Blackthorn, before the moon goddess and the 7 northern packs, do you claim the woman fate has bound to your soul? Lyra's breath caught. Darius looked at her. For 1 second his mask cracked. Pain flickered in his eyes. Then it vanished. His voice was calm when he spoke. I do not. The words cut through the hall like a blade. Lyra blinked, certain she had misheard. The High Elder frowned. Alpha? Darius did not look away from Lyra. I reject Lyra Vale as my fated mate. A gasp moved through the crowd. Lyra felt the floor drop beneath her. The mate bond in her chest convulsed, like something living had been stabbed. Darius continued, each word colder than the last. She is weak, wolfless, unworthy of the Blackthorn throne. A pack cannot be led by pity, and I will not shame my bloodline by placing an Omega beside me. For a moment, Lyra could not breathe, not because of the insult, because of the lie. He knew she was not weak. He knew how many nights she had healed his warriors without sleep. He knew she had once stood between a silver blade and his little sister. He knew she had loved him when no one else saw the broken man beneath the Alpha crown. And still he chose to destroy her in front of them all. Someone laughed, then another. Soon the hall filled with cruel whispers and soft amusement. Seraphina rose from her chair, her golden gown shimmering as she walked to Darius's side. She placed one delicate hand on his arm. Lyra stared at that hand. Darius let it stay there. The High Elder's face turned pale. "Lyra Vale, do you accept this rejection?" The answer stuck in her throat. If she refused, the bond would keep tearing them both apart. If she accepted, a part of her would die. Darius's jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, Lyra saw it again. Pain, regret, fear. But he said nothing. He did not save her. So Lyra saved herself. She lifted her chin. Her voice shook, but it did not break. "I accept your rejection. Alpha Darius Blackthorn." The bond snapped. Pain exploded behind her ribs. She almost fell, but her fingers curled into fists, nails biting into her palms. She would not collapse for their entertainment. She would not give Seraphina the pleasure of seeing her on her knees. Darius flinched as if struck. Lyra removed the moonstone bracelet from her wrist, the bracelet he had given her after the Battle of Red Pine, when he told her she was the only light in his cursed house. She placed it on the floor between them. Then she turned and walked away. Behind her, the hall erupted. Some laughed, some whispered, some looked away because even wolves had limits to how much cruelty they could witness. Lyra walked through the tall doors without once looking back. Outside, the night air hit her face like ice. Snow drifted over the castle courtyard. The moon hung full and white above the Blackthorn mountains, watching silently, as if it had witnessed every betrayal ever made beneath its light. Lyra made it to the bottom of the stone steps before her knees gave out. She gripped the frozen railing, gasping through the pain. The severed bond left an emptiness inside her so deep she almost screamed. But before she could break, a sound rolled across the sky. A wolf's howl, then another, then hundreds. From every mountain ridge, every forest line, every pack border, wolves lifted their voices to the moon. Lyra froze. The moonlight brightened, not softly, not naturally. It poured down like liquid silver, surrounding her in a circle. Behind her, the doors of the grand hall burst open. Nobles rushed outside. Warriors stopped on the steps. Elders stared upward, their faces drained of colour. Darius came last. His eyes found Lyra immediately. The moonlight around her grew stronger. The snow stopped falling. Then a voice filled the courtyard. It was not loud, but every wolf heard it inside their bones. The rejected blood has awakened. Lyra's breath caught. The High Elder dropped his staff. Elder Mayron, the oldest wolf in the northern lands, stumbled forward from the crowd. His blind white eyes filled with tears. "No," he whispered. "It cannot be." The moon brightened again. A silver mark appeared on Lyra's forehead. A crescent crown. The crowd fell silent. Seraphina's smile vanished. Darius took one step toward Lyra, but the moonlight struck the ground before him like a warning. He stopped. The voice spoke again. The one cast out by Alpha, pride shall rise by moon decree. Lyra shook her head. She did not understand. She did not want power. She did not want prophecy. She wanted to breathe without feeling like her heart had been torn from her chest. "What is happening?" she whispered. Elder Meron fell to one knee before her. "Not from weakness, from reverence. My queen," he said. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Some gasped, some screamed, some backed away as if Lyra had become a monster. Darius stared at Elder Meron as though the old wolf had lost his mind. "Get up," Darius commanded. Meron did not move. "Elder," Darius growled. "I said get up." The old wolf lifted his face, tears shining in the moonlight. "I cannot kneel to you tonight, Alpha Blackthorn. Not when the moon has revealed her true sovereign." Darius's eyes turned black with his wolf. "What are you saying?" Meron looked at Lyra. "I am saying you have rejected the last heir of the moon throne." The world tilted. Lyra stepped back. "No, that's impossible." Seraphina laughed sharply, but fear poisoned the sound. "An Omega? The Moon Queen? This is madness." Meron's expression hardened. "Silence, Lady Marrow. Your house has hidden enough truth for one generation." Seraphina went still. Lyra noticed. So did Darius. Meron rose slowly, every ancient bone trembling beneath the weight of memory. 22 years ago, the royal Moonblood line was slaughtered in the Eclipse Massacre. The king and queen died protecting their infant daughter. The kingdom believed the child died with them. His gaze locked on Lyra's pendant. But the child was hidden, marked by moonstone, raised beneath a false name, suppressed by ancient seals so her enemies could never sense her power. Lyra touched the pendant at her throat, her mother's pendant. Her mother, who never spoke of the past. Her mother, who taught her never to shift under a blood moon. Her mother, who vanished the night Lyra turned 16. "No," Lyra whispered. "My mother was a healer." "She was your guardian," Meron said gently. "And she died keeping you safe." The words landed harder than the rejection. Lyra's mother had not abandoned her. She had protected her. All the years of loneliness, all the unanswered questions, all the nights Lyra had cursed herself for not being worth staying for, it had all been a lie built over a deeper truth. Seraphina stepped backward. Darius noticed and turned on her. "What does your family know about this?" Seraphina lifted her chin. Nothing. But her heartbeat betrayed her. Every wolf heard it. Fast, terrified. Meron pointed his staff toward her. House Marrow opened the gates during the Eclipse Massacre. They sold the Moonblood family to the Southern Hunters in exchange for power. The courtyard exploded. Darius looked at Seraphina as if seeing her for the first time. "Is that true?" Seraphina's beautiful face hardened. "My family did what was necessary. The Moonbloods were weak. They wanted peace with rogues, mercy for traitors, equality for Omegas. They would have ruined the Alpha Order." Lyra stared at her. "You killed my family?" Seraphina smiled, but it trembled. "Not personally, but I would have." Darius moved so quickly the guards flinched. He grabbed Seraphina's arm. "You knew who Lyra was?" Seraphina laughed bitterly. "I suspected. My father suspected. Why do you think I pushed the council to reject her? Why do you think I told them she was wolfless? Why do you think I made sure everyone laughed before anyone could question her?" Darius's face drained of colour. Lyra looked at him. Slowly. "You knew the council wanted me gone." He did not answer. That was answer enough. "You knew they were lying about me." His jaw tightened. "I knew they were afraid of what you might be, and still you rejected me." "I had no choice." Lyra's laugh was quiet. "Broken. There is always a choice, Darius. You made yours in front of everyone." The moonlight pulsed. The silver crown mark on her forehead burned. Lyra cried out and fell to her knees. Darius surged forward. "Lyra!" This time the moonlight did not stop him. But before he could reach her, a force burst from Lyra's body. Not fire, not wind, power. Pure silver power exploded across the courtyard, knocking every wolf backward. Darius hit the stone steps hard. Warriors shielded their faces, lanterns shattered, snow spun into the air in a storm of moonlit glass. Lyra lifted her head. Her eyes glowed silver. Inside her, something moved. A wolf. Not the small, silent creature she had always searched for and never found. This wolf was ancient, vast, waiting. For years, Lyra had believed she had no wolf because she was broken. Now she understood. Her wolf had been sleeping beneath a royal seal, and betrayal had finally broken it open. A voice whispered inside her. "Rise, daughter of the moon." Lyra stood. The ground trembled. Far beyond the castle walls, wolves howled again. Not in fear, in recognition, Seraphina screamed at the guards. "Seize her! She is dangerous." No one moved. Seraphina's eyes flashed gold. She grabbed a fallen warrior's silver dagger and lunged toward Lyra. Darius roared, "No!" But Lyra did not move. Seraphina drove the dagger toward her heart. The blade stopped inches from Lyra's chest. Suspended in mid-air, the silver melted. It dripped harmlessly onto the snow. Lyra looked at Seraphina. For the first time in her life, Lyra did not feel small. "You stole my family," she said softly. "You stole my name. You stole my place in this world." Seraphina trembled. Lyra stepped closer. "But you will not steal my mercy." The moonlight wrapped around Seraphina like chains, forcing her to her knees. Seraphina gasped, fighting against it, but the power only tightened. Lyra turned to the gathered packs. Her voice carried across the courtyard. "I don't know how to be a queen. I don't know the laws of a throne I was never told belonged to me. But I know what it is to be ignored. I know what it is to be judged before you speak. I know what it is to be called weak by those who are terrified of your strength." Every Omega in the courtyard looked up. Servants near the castle doors began to cry. Even some warriors lowered their heads. Lyra's gaze moved to Darius. "And I know what it is to love someone who chooses pride over truth." Darius looked as if every word struck blood. "Lyra," he said, voice rough, "I was trying to protect you." She shook her head. "No, you were trying to protect your throne." The The silence that followed was sharper than any scream. Then the High Elder stepped forward, trembling. "There is a law," he said. "The moon crown cannot be claimed by vision alone. If Lyra Vale is truly the Moon Queen, she must survive the ancient trial." Mehron turned sharply. "You cannot demand that tonight." But the High Elder's eyes flickered toward the noble houses. Fear controlled him. "If she is false, the trial will end this madness. If she is true, no wolf can deny her." Seraphina smiled from her knees. "Yes," she hissed. "Let the Omega prove herself." Darius snarled. "Enough." But Lyra raised her hand. Everyone stilled. "What trial?" Mehron's voice was low. "The moon trial. 3 gates beneath the old shrine. Blood, truth, and crown. No one has survived it since the last Moon Queen." Lyra looked toward the forest, beyond the walls. She should have been afraid. A few hours ago, she had only wanted Darius to choose her. Now the kingdom was demanding she prove she deserved to exist. The old Lyra might have run, but the old Lyra had died when Darius rejected her. "Fine," she said. Darius's head snapped toward her. "No." Lyra looked at him. "You lost the right to tell me what to do." His face twisted with pain. She turned to Mehron. "Take me to the shrine." The old wolf bowed his head. "As you command, my queen." By midnight, the entire court had gathered at the ancient moon shrine deep in the Blackthorn forest. The shrine was older than any pack. Black stone pillars rose from the frozen earth, carved with wolves chasing stars. At its center stood a circular door, half buried beneath roots, glowing faintly with silver rune. Lyra stood before it barefoot, as the trial demanded. The snow burned her skin, but she did not shiver. Behind her, the pack watched in silence. Darius stood apart from the others, his face shadowed, his wolf restless beneath his skin. Every instinct in him screamed to stop this, to grab Lyra, to carry her away, to tell the world it could burn before he let the trial take her. But he had chosen silence when it mattered. Now, silence was all he had left. Mehron placed a ceremonial blade in Lyra's hand. "The first gate is blood. It will show you what was taken." Lyra nodded. The stone door opened. Darkness waited below. She stepped inside. The moment her foot touched the first stair, the world changed. The shrine disappeared. She stood in a burning palace. Smoke filled the air. Wolves screamed. A woman ran down a marble corridor with a baby in her arms. Lyra knew the woman instantly. Not from memory, from blood. Her mother, not her guardian. Her real mother, Queen Elowen Moonvale. The queen pressed the baby into the arms of a young healer. "Take her," Elowen begged. "Hide her name. Seal her wolf. If she survives, the moon will find her." The healer sobbed. "My queen, come with us." Elowen looked back at the burning throne room. Her mate was fighting alone. "I cannot." The healer ran. Lyra watched helplessly as Seraphina's father opened the palace gates to hunters carrying silver chains. She watched her father fall. She watched her mother stand alone beneath the broken moon window, silver arrows in her chest, still fighting until the baby was gone. Lyra screamed, but no one heard. Then Queen Elowen turned. For one impossible second, her eyes met Lyra's across time. "My daughter," she whispered, "do not let pain make you cruel. Let it make you just." The vision shattered. Lyra fell to her knees inside the trial chamber, sobbing. The first gate opened behind her. She forced herself to stand. The second chamber was filled with mirrors. Maeron's voice echoed from nowhere. "The second gate is truth. It will show you what you fear." Lyra stepped forward. The mirrors came alive. In one, she saw herself crowned and alone. In another, she saw Darius kneeling, begging, and herself forgiving him too easily, because loneliness frightened her more than betrayal. In another, she saw herself becoming like Seraphina, beautiful, powerful, merciless. Then the largest mirror showed Darius, not as Alpha, as a boy. He stood beside his father, no older than 10, watching an Omega beaten for speaking against a noble. His father gripped his shoulder. "Mercy weakens kings. Love makes Alphas kneel. If you ever choose your heart over your throne, you will lose both." The vision shifted. Darius at 16, holding his dying mother. Darius at 20, accepting the Alpha mark after his father was murdered by rebels. Darius at 25, standing outside Lyra's room, listening to her sing softly while she mended his coat, his hand raised to knock, but never touching the door. Darius whispering to himself, "She deserves better than this court." Then Seraphina's father's voice, "Reject the Omega, Alpha Blackthorn, or the council will accuse her of Moonblood treason and execute her before sunrise." Darius's face in the vision broke. He had thought rejection would save Lyra. He had thought cruelty in public would make the council believe she was worthless. He had thought if he destroyed her name, they would stop watching her blood. Lyra stared at the mirror, tears on her face. The truth did not heal the wound. It only made it more complicated. Darius had not rejected her because he never loved her. He had rejected her because he was a coward dressed as a protector. The mirror whispered, "Will you forgive him?" Lyra closed her eyes. "I don't know." The mirror cracked. "That is truth." The second gate opened. The final chamber was empty, except for a crown floating above a pool of black water. The crown was made of moonlight, beautiful, terrifying. Lyra stepped toward it. A voice filled the darkness. "The third gate is crown. To rule, you must choose what kind of queen you will become." The black water rose. From it came shadows wearing familiar faces. Seraphina. The council, the pack members who laughed. Darius. Each shadow bowed before her. Then the voice spoke again. "Take the crown, and they are yours to punish. Every wolf who mocked you, every noble who used you, every alpha who doubted you, command them, break them, make them feel what you felt." Lyra's silver wolf stirred inside her. For one moment, she wanted it. She wanted Seraphina afraid. She wanted the council stripped of power. She wanted Darius to feel the emptiness he left inside her. She wanted every laugh returned as a scream. Then she remembered her mother's words. "Do not let pain make you cruel. Let it make you just." Lyra reached for the crown, but instead of placing it on her head, she lowered it to her heart. "I will not rule from revenge," she said, "but I will not rule from weakness either." The chamber trembled. "I will punish the guilty, protect the forgotten. break every law that lets power call itself destiny. And if love ever asks me to abandon my dignity again, I will choose the crown." The moonlight crown dissolved into her chest. Lyra screamed as power tore through her. Above the shrine, the sky split open. Outside, the waiting wolves fell back as silver light burst from the ground. Darius ran toward the shrine door. Mehron grabbed his arm. "If you enter now, the trial will kill you." Darius shoved him away. "I already killed her once." Before he could step forward, the stone door exploded outward. Lyra emerged from the shrine. But she was not the same woman who had entered. Her white dress had transformed into silver armor, shaped like moonlight and shadow. Her hair flowed around her like a dark river, streaked with silver. The crescent crown mark blazed on her forehead. And behind her stood a wolf. Not flesh, not spirit. Something between. A massive white wolf with silver eyes, towering over every alpha present. The Moon Queen's wolf. Every wolf in the forest dropped to one knee. Not by choice, by instinct. The High Elder tried to remain standing. His legs shook violently. Then he fell too. Mehron bowed his head to the snow. "My queen." The words spread. First among the Omegas, then the warriors, then the visiting Alphas. "My queen, my queen, my queen." Darius remained standing longer than anyone, not because he resisted her power, because Lyra did not force him. She wanted his kneeling to be his choice. He stared at her, eyes full of wonder and grief. Then, slowly, Alpha Darius Blackthorn lowered himself to one knee. The most powerful Alpha in the north bowed his head before the woman he had rejected hours earlier. "I was wrong," he said, voice breaking. Lyra looked down at him. "Yes, I thought I was saving you. You were saving yourself from choosing me." His jaw tightened. A tear slipped down his face, and the court gasped because no one had ever seen Darius Blackthorn cry. "I loved you," he whispered. Lyra's heart twisted. I know, that hurt most of all. If he had never loved her, it would have been easier. Darius lifted his head. "Can the bond be restored?" The forest held its breath. Lyra thought of the bracelet on the hall floor. The whispered promises, the public shame, the truth hidden behind fear. The boy raised to believe love was weakness. The Alpha who still chose to break her heart instead of trusting it. "I don't know," she said honestly. "And even if it can, I am not the girl you rejected anymore. I know." "No, Darius, you don't." She stepped closer. "You rejected an Omega. You shamed a servant. You abandoned your mate. But tonight, you kneel before your queen. Those are not the same woman." His shoulders bowed beneath the words. Behind them, Seraphina tried to crawl away. Lyra turned her head. The moonlight chains dragged Seraphina forward and threw her at Lyra's feet. Seraphina's face was wild with fear. "Please," she whispered. "Mercy." Lyra studied her. The court waited for blood. Part of Lyra knew they expected her to execute Seraphina on the spot. Perhaps they wanted it. Perhaps they needed a violent queen to understand her power. But Lyra would not perform cruelty to satisfy a crowd. "Seraphina Marrow," Lyra said, voice ringing through the forest. Your house betrayed the Moonblood line, murdered my family, manipulated the council, and attempted to kill me with silver." Seraphina sobbed. Lyra continued, "You will stand trial before every pack, not behind closed doors, where gold can buy innocence. Your family's lands will be seized until the truth is recorded. Every Omega imprisoned under Marrow law will be freed by sunrise." Seraphina stared up at her. "You're letting me live?" Lyra's eyes hardened. "I am letting justice be seen." Then she looked to the High Elder. "You knew the council planned to execute me." The old man trembled. "I suspected." "Answer carefully." He swallowed. "Yes? And you allowed Darius to reject me publicly because it was easier than challenging noble power." The High Elder lowered his eyes. "Yes?" Lyra turned to the gathered Alphas. "Then hear my first decree as Moon Queen. No mate bond shall ever again be used as a chain. No Omega shall be punished without trial. No council shall hold power without answer to the crown. And any Alpha who rejects his mate for politics will stand before me and explain why his pride matters more than the Moon Goddess's will." A wave of shock moved through the packs. Some nobles looked furious. The Omegas looked as if they were seeing sunrise for the first time. Darius slowly stood. "My queen," he said. The title on his lips changed something in the air. "I place Blackthorn warriors under your command." Seraphina laughed bitterly from the ground. "Of course you do. Now that she has power, you want her." Darius looked at her with cold disgust. "No. Now that she has power, I finally understand she never needed mine." Lyra's expression softened for half a second. Only half. Then Meron approached. "My queen, there is one more matter." Lyra looked at him. "The Moon Throne still stands beneath the capital ruins. If you accept it, every pack must swear loyalty by dawn. If you refuse, the noble houses will fight for control before sunrise." Lyra looked at the forest, at the kneeling wolves, at the servants who had once shared bread with her in the kitchens, at Darius, who watched her like a man, staring at the life he had thrown away. She had never wanted a throne, but she understood now that not wanting power did not free her from responsibility. Sometimes the crown did not come because a person desired it. Sometimes it came because everyone else had abused it. Lyra lifted her chin. "Then we ride to the capital." By dawn, the ruins of Moonvale Palace burned with silver light for the first time in 22 years. The old throne room had no roof. Snow covered the cracked marble floor. Vines climbed the broken pillars. The royal banners had rotted away long ago. But when Lyra stepped inside, the palace remembered her. Moonlight spilled across the stones. The shattered throne rebuilt itself piece by piece, silver and obsidian rising from ruin. Wolves from every pack filled the courtyard outside, thousands of them waiting in silence. Lyra walked toward the throne. Every step echoed with the ghosts of her parents. At the foot of the dais, she stopped. Darius stood behind her, not beside her. Not yet. Meron carried the ancient crown, now solid silver, shaped like crescent moons and wolf teeth. "Lyra Moonvale," he said, voice trembling, "last daughter of the Moonblood line, chosen by the goddess, survivor of betrayal, keeper of the silver wolf, do you accept the crown?" Lyra looked once at Darius. His eyes held 1,000 apologies, but he did not ask for her. He did not reach for her. For the first time, he loved her enough to let her choose without him. Lyra faced the throne. "I accept." Mehron placed the crown upon her head. The entire kingdom felt it. A pulse of power rolled across the mountains. Wolves howled from every border. The moon, though fading into morning, flashed once in the pale sky. Lyra sat on the moon throne, and every Alpha kneeled, including Darius Blackthorn. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lyra rose again, because queens did not sit while their kingdom bled. "Bring me the prisoners from House Marrow," she commanded. "Send riders to every Omega quarter. Open the sealed archives. By nightfall, I want every law written by the corrupt council placed before me." The court moved instantly, not out of fear alone, out of awe. Darius remained kneeling. Lyra noticed. "You may rise, Alpha Blackthorn." He stood slowly. "I will leave if you ask me to," he said quietly. Lyra studied him. The easy answer would have been yes. The wounded answer. The satisfying answer. But queens could not rule by wounds alone. "No," she said. "You will stay." Hope flickered in his eyes. Not romantic hope. Something more painful. The hope of being allowed to make things right. Lyra continued. "You will serve as commander of the Northern Guard until I decide whether your loyalty is to me, to your pack, or to your guilt." He bowed his head. "As you command." "And Darius?" He looked up. Her voice softened, but only slightly. "I may forgive you one day." His breath caught. "But I will never again become small enough to fit inside the love you were willing to offer me." The words struck him silent. Lyra turned away before he could answer. Outside, the sun broke over the mountains. The first sunlight touched her crown, turning silver into fire. The servants who had once worked beside her watched from the palace steps. One by one they bowed, not to the Omega they had pitied, not to the rejected mate they had whispered about, but to the queen the moon had hidden until the world was ready to kneel. Lyra looked over her kingdom. She thought of the girl in the white dress, the girl who had stood before a cruel court, hoping to be chosen by one man. That girl had been broken, but she had not been weak. She had walked out of humiliation with her head high. And because she walked away from the Alpha who rejected her, the moon led her to the throne that had been waiting all along. That night, when the kingdom gathered beneath Moonvale Palace, Lyra stood on the balcony above them. Thousands of wolves filled the valley. Alphas, betas, omegas, rogues, servants, warriors. For the first time in generations, they stood under one crown. Darius watched from the shadows behind her. He remembered the way she had looked in the hall, small and pale and devastated, and shame burned through him so deeply he wondered if it would ever stop. Lyra sensed him there. She did not turn. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He did not pretend not to understand. Every breath, she looked out at the moon. "If you had claimed me last night, I might have become your Luna." Darius closed his eyes. "Yes, but because you rejected me." Her silver wolf stirred behind her, luminous and mighty. "I became queen." Darius bowed his head. "And I will spend the rest of my life honoring the difference." Lyra finally turned to him. For the first time since the rejection, she looked at him without anger controlling her face. There was still pain. There might always be pain. But there was also strength, a new distance, a crown between them. "Then start tomorrow," she said. "There is much to rebuild." He nodded. "Yes, my queen." Lyra stepped forward to address the kingdom. The crowd fell silent. Her voice carried across the valley, calm and powerful. "For too long, power has belonged only to those born loud enough to claim it. For too long, the weak have been named by those afraid of their rise. Tonight, that ends." The wolves listened. Even the wind seemed to pause. "I was rejected before you, shamed before you, judged before you. But the moon saw what the world refused to see." She lifted her hand. Silver light bloomed above the valley. "So let every forgotten wolf hear me now. Your silence is not weakness. Your pain is not your ending. And the place they cast you out from may only be the road to the throne meant for you." A howl rose from the crowd. Then another. Then thousands. Lyra's silver wolf lifted its head and howled with them. Above, the moon shone brighter, and far behind her, Alpha Darius Blackthorn kneeled once more, not because the moon forced him, not because the court watched him, but because he finally understood. He had rejected her in public. He had shattered the girl who loved him. But the moon had gathered every broken piece and made her a queen.